A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a genius man named George Lucas came up with a story that would shape the minds of numerous filmmakers, children, and just all around kinds of people. Seriously, it was an amazing experience by the sounds of it. I wasn't there, I wouldn't know. I can only read about its impact on the world, and from what I can see now, I can tell that it was unlike anything ever seen before. Throughout the years, we got comics, novels, video games, animated series, animated movies, and obviously sequels and prequels. 2016 gave us the newest thing, a live action spin off, and it was called Rogue One. It was a daring project made on the basis of one question that didn't need a whole movie to explain, but that was done anyway. How did the rebels get the Death Star plans? What's next? How the rebels got the plans to the second Death Star? I'm kidding. Don't do that. Well, that spin off prequel thing got its own spin off prequel called Andor, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. You already know how it goes. If you don't, have a look at our other videos released this year where we talk about the shows we've been watching. We're going to talk about the characters, then the show itself. There are way too many characters in this show, so we'll just focus on the most prominent ones. Otherwise, this video will be an hour long. So we have Cassian Andor, the main character of the show. He's shown to come from a planet which suffered a purge, as the Mandalorians call it. The Empire labels it as an accident, but we know better than that. He was taken in by Marva Andor and Clem Andor. That's where he got his name from. His original name is revealed to be Kassa. Interesting backstory, which I definitely think should have been touched on in Rogue One, but let me not let my hate for prequels cloud my enjoyment of this show. He starts the show looking for his sister, who we presume he hasn't seen since he left his home world. He then gets recruited by Luther to sabotage an Imperial stronghold and identifies himself as Clem, after escaping Ferrix, where he's being persecuted for the murder of 2 Imperial officers. After sabotaging the stronghold, he goes to live a normal life and is arrested and taken to a prison where he works day and night assembling parts with his cellmates. He then escapes and goes back to Ferrix, where after a small revolution takes place, he takes off with Luther to join the rebellion. Cassian is a solid main character. He's written very well and carries the show in a very subtle yet firm way. The character isn't flat or lacking in any department. He's expertly written, realistically written too, but I feel like the fact that he just let go of his search for his sister at the first digression was weak writing. Heck, even the writer said that he may not even involve that subplot anymore, as things have moved on from there. Bro, you do realize that's what set the entire show into motion, right? Anyway, he's kind of hard to root for or connect to because we know he'll survive everything and end up dying on Scarif. It's still a good show for us to get to know more about him before seeing him get practically nuked. Then we have Cyril Karn, a guy who's just trying to do his job and get some respect, to the point that he's demoted and then berated by his overbearing but caring mother, who clearly has no idea what the Empire actually does. I'm not sure Cyril knows how it feels to be on the other side. He seems to think he's on the right side. I mean, I'm with you, pal. We often think our side is right, but that's not always the case, is it? He's infatuated with the other character, Dedra Miro, who seems to be hot on Andor's trail as well and catching on. She even uses his clues and catches up with him and sets up an ambush. Cyril is a typical example of a blind patriot that gives it his all but will never be distinguished simply because he tries too much. Then we have, obviously, Dedra Miro. She's a tough-as-nails go-getter and just about the most interesting villain we've had in recent Star Wars projects. She's not some conflicted character who blurs the lines between right and wrong like all the other interesting villains in Star Wars. She's bad through and through, and That's what's most interesting about her. She's lawful evil. The closest we've had to that is Moff Gideon, but we lost sight of that somewhere down the line. Now he's just a regular villain who's evil because, well, bad guys are evil. I'm gonna watch Mandalorian Season 3 soon and see just how much more they do with him. I heard he comes back, so Miro, ironically, but not surprisingly, is right in her suspicions, but is always put down by one of her peers who feels like his position is threatened by her, and who inadvertently ruins the perfect capture of a dangerous criminal, in the eyes of the Empire, of course. We've also got Mon Mothma, who somehow is a fan favorite character. I don't really know why or how, but all of them are welcome, I guess. Star Wars is really nice when the characters are loved even when we don't know how or why. She's shown as trying to maintain her cover as a rebel leader and an imperial senator, supplying Luther and the Alliance with funds while also trying to preserve what little democracy and moral values were left in the Empire from the Republic that was dismantled. Her domestic life is equally chaotic as she tries to keep her family together and to follow some semblance of rules. Her life is really just a wreck at the point of this show, but she shows resolve through the difficulties and continues to do what's right. This leaves it clear that this is all happening before Star Wars Rebels, because in that show, she declares that she's not going to support the Empire anymore and calls for aid from those who agree. That episode had one of my favorite moments in all of Star Wars, and that's really saying something because I don't like Star Wars Rebels. A lot more is shown of her, and we get to see just how much she had to deal with. I wonder what Leia was doing this whole time. The show certainly doesn't tell us. We've got Bix, who's Cassian's friend. She's actually just a normal person who gets by doing some illegal stuff to help Cassian out or anyone who needs it. She's not some icon or whatever female characters are supposed to be whenever they're put in these kinds of shows. She's just an average person who is loyal to, although irritated with, Cassian and all the messes he gets into. So much so that her boyfriend starts getting jealous and thinks that she's having a thing with Cassian. And he even brings the Empire along to try and arrest him because of the whole deal with the two officers who were killed. And they realized that it was Cassian who did it, so they were looking for him. Great job, buddy. We already had a jealous guy before in Anakin Skywalker when he was jealous of Obi-Wan. You know what the galaxy ended up being? Exactly what you're going through now. But we do have to thank him. I mean, if it wasn't for him, the whole story wouldn't have taken place the way it did. But then again, he died too. But hey, you know what? I just realized that's a lot like what they intend to do with this whole poetry thing that they keep bringing up. So, hey, it's like poetry. It rhymes. There's also Luther, who's a super dedicated rebel. He comes into the show mysteriously and he recruits Cassian for the mission before deciding that he has to kill him. This is where we get to see the dark side of the rebellion that Rogue One gave us a glimpse of. He's stoic when he interacts with everyone as himself, but cheerful when he's acting in front of Imperials. He's a stand-in for the rebellion in the eyes of the audience. We only saw the good side of their actions in the original trilogy and Rebels, but Rogue One and Andor showed us how dirty they were willing to get their hands, and it is super dirty. Even Saw Gerrera couldn't do what Luther was willing to do, and Saw was excommunicated due to being an extremist. Luther is a very interesting character, a very dangerous person. He's double-sided, and that nature makes you question whether you should root for him in dangerous situations or not. Especially throughout this season because, he's after our hero, Andor. He's a very well-written character. And he has one of my favorite lines in all of Star Wars. He goes like, "Make your exit as you enter," or "Enter as you make your exit." But anyway, it's one of those two, but man, it was cool. Next up, we have Marva Andor. She's a sweet old lady who is also stern. She took in Cassian as a kid and raised him to be able to defend himself. The years have not been kind to her, and she was dying of a certain disease. Even so, she never lost her nerve and was one of the few people who could keep Cassian in check. Alright, that's enough with the characters, or else we could go on forever and ever. Let's get on with the show. I must admit, when it was announced around 2017, I thought that it was just the most pointless Star Wars project ever. Not only because it was yet another prequel, but because this time it'd be a spin off of a prequel based on a character who's already dead. This I consider to be content for the sake of content, just a director's vanity project so he can have something in his resume. Well, fast forward a few years and my opinion has slightly changed. This show is amazing. People complain about it being slow paced, but I think that that's the whole point of it. It builds up everything that happens meticulously and carefully. We feel every bit of emotion possible throughout the show. Also, I like how realistic it made things. I don't know. Maybe it's the color grading, but something about the visual style makes the world look and feel so real. It's a refreshing take from sparky, flashy boom boom we know Star Wars to be at times. I mean, is it really too slow to maintain interest, or are you used to constant action? Andor has lore. It builds on the political atmosphere that George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars himself, established in the prequel trilogy. We learn about how the organizations of the Empire and the Rebels work, and how they had all these pseudo wars going on with each other before it got to the point where the Death Star was made and all out war was declared. And by the gods, the Empire was finally shown to be run by competent people. And you have no idea how frustrating it was to always see Imperials as bumbling incompetents who just have mean faces on all the time. And British accents. I don't know what you're going for with that last part, but okay, Americans. This show shows them as competent people running a structured organization, something Star Wars Rebels failed to do despite having the responsibility to do so. It still suffers from the same Rebel era story's flaw where the Empire is shown constantly losing, yet we're always being told that it's getting stronger. But hey, you know what they say regarding TV shows? Say, don't show. The prison arc was my favorite, and Kino Loy was such a sad character. He was conflicted between duty and personal feelings, and that part where everyone is escaping and he's like, yeah, that hit hard. Hashtag one way out. The characters are all interesting and well written. I have a question about B2 emo or BMO or whatever you say it like. That stutter he has. I'm sure it can be repaired if they cared enough to pay for such. He's a droid after all, not a person. And I don't know if you noticed, Tony Gilroy has this tendency of having characters leave important messages which are heard when something dire is about to happen. And it's like the characters are getting anxious because of what's happening as the message is being played. It happened in Rogue One when Galen's message to the rebels was being played and Jedha was getting blown to bits. It happens here when Marva's post-mortem speech was playing. Both characters leave messages to their loved ones, and somehow the messages always play when something big is about to happen, and the way they speak is as if they can see the chaos happening around them. It's really weird. And that speech by Marva? Very nice. I just don't know why Tony Gilroy wanted her to say the Empire. Disney edited that part and made her say fight the Empire. That's one bit of studio meddling I can get behind. Star Wars may be the grounds for a lot of diversity and ideas, but there's no space for such things there, you know? Anyway, I think more Star Wars shows and movies should use this one as inspiration. It is hard, it has emotion, lore, world building, a credible threat, and of course, well made action scenes. And kudos to them for not including an Ahsoka cameo. Jeez! It's nice to have a break from. Oh, come on! Well, it was nice while it lasted. Having said that, it's nice to have to talk about these shows, but the videos can't go for so long. I understand you have a lot of other things to do, and listening to me talk about a show you've probably seen shouldn't keep you busy or take up that much of your time. So instead of going on for 40 minutes watching the video, how about you check out our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and our website to see just how much else we do. We've got a lot more going on. You could also check out the other videos on our channel. See? See what I did there? You thought it was going to be a normal goodbye? Ha, tricked ya. It was all part of the grand design. So, wait, didn't Cassian say that he's been fighting since he was 6 years old in Rogue One? What happened in this show?